Hey everyone, thank you for joining me today. Excited to be here, part of SMX Advanced. My name is Menachem, and I'm the founder of JXT Group. Before we get into today's presentation, a little bit about me. I launched my first Google Ads campaign back in 2003, coming up on 2 decades of search, and definitely been in the game for quite a while. Again, I'm the founder of JXT Group. We're a Google Premier Partner Agency based out of New Jersey on the East Coast of the United States. And as you can imagine, search advertising has evolved quite a bit over the past few years. And this is one of the things that I love about our industry is that it's constantly changing. There's something new to learn every day, staying ahead of new features, functionality, different technology, campaign types. And so today we'll learn about smart bidding and how to take advantage of it and make the most of your campaigns. We'll discuss the benefits of why it's important, how to set up the right inputs and outputs to ensure that your conversion tracking is configured properly, because ultimately, automation is only as good as the data that you feed it. We'll also discuss some of the differences on how lead gen versus e-commerce, how it affects smart bidding, when to use different bid strategies. We'll talk a little bit about Performance Max, which is all new and exciting, a lot of opportunity there, and how to use your first party data to guide the machines, guide the algorithm to be as efficient as possible. So, what is smart bidding? Smart bidding is the automated algorithms provided by Google, Microsoft, and leveraging automated bidding allows you to take advantage of real-time auction-based bids, looking at a wide range of information based on each user, time of day, what they've searched for in the past, where they're located, things of that nature. You'll give up some level of control, but you'll likely gain efficiency and performance, and your campaigns will thank you for it. One thing to keep in mind is, like everything else, there are downsides to smart bidding. You'll lose the ability to utilize a lot of bid adjustments. You'll lose more specific control. And this is a handy chart from Optimizer. It kind of shows you what bid adjustments are still available with different smart bidding strategies. The thing to keep in mind is, unlike bid adjustments for manual CPC, your bid adjustments in smart bidding modify the value of your CPA or ROAS target rather than the bids itself. At the end of the day, though, smart bidding does provide performance gains, and the trade-off is definitely worth it. Here's some best practices to keep in mind when utilizing smart bidding. The system is only able to run through whatever data it has, and when you set the budget too low, it's not able to learn anything. It's not able to see what's driving conversions, what's driving clicks. And so you want to avoid setting a budget that's too low that will inhibit the campaign from actually getting traffic, getting data. Additionally, you want to try not to be too reactive. You have to remember that you are giving the algorithm the guidance to run the campaigns, and you don't want to make too many changes too fast because you'll throw the system off. Watch it closely, but give the system the space to work things through. I like to say to my team, eyes on, hands off. Our job is to guide the machines. It's not what it was years ago. Additionally, you want to set realistic targets. If you set them too aggressively, what could happen is you'll exclude yourself from the auction because you won't be competitive enough. And so you want to make sure that your KPIs, whatever your target ROAS or target CPA is, that it's realistic within the framework of what your competitors are bidding for and all of that. At the same time, especially for search and standard shopping campaigns, you do want to watch what keywords are generating traffic for your campaigns and make sure it's on target with the product or service that you're advertising. But again, allow the system the space to do the work that it needs to do. So with that, we'll talk about the inputs and the outputs. To me, I think smart bidding is kind of like coffee. The more you drink, the better it can do. So it's our job to provide the machines with the data points that it needs to make the right decisions in that real-time auction process. Ultimately, automated bidding will take the heavy lifting out of your campaign management and will typically outperform manual bidding. But like most things in life, you get what you give. And the machine learning can only make smart choices if it knows what's valuable to your business. So it's really important to set up the campaigns and conversion actions that are in line with your business. So with that, how do you know what to track? And you can really track a lot of different things, but we like to line it up again with what's important to your business. So for service providers, typically that's going to be things like customers contacting you, phone calls, live chats, form submissions, things of that nature. Whereas for e-commerce stores, it typically is all about revenue, online sales driving revenue. There are obviously nuances to that where you'll have some stores that get a lot of sales over the phone, so you want to track some combination of that. But at the end of the day, you want to track what's important to your business, what drives actual real revenue. So outside of manual CPC, there are four types of smart bidding available to us within Google Ads and the other ad platforms. Typically, though, when launching new campaigns, we recommend starting with manual bids or maximize clicks. And the reason for this is like everything else, everything needs practice. The algorithm needs data to understand who the right customer is, who it should go after. And so by starting a campaign with manual bids, you allow the system to drive traffic easily within your control and start collecting data. And so why do we do this and not just start on smart bidding? And just a quick note is that Google does recommend you start on smart bidding and start off with data-driven attribution modeling in the account. But my experience has shown that in order for the algorithms to get the right results, when you start out on smart bidding, it kind of runs through its paces. It will drive traffic from places that might not convert just to try and learn. And so by starting out with manual bids, I find that you're able to sort of minimize the wasteful spend that will come through your account by keeping stronger control on the actual keywords and how much you're paying per click to drive traffic. And once you've tracked a decent number of conversions, at that point, you'll want to switch over to smart bidding. And so, how do you know which smart bidding option is best for you? And so again, you want to follow what's important to your business. If it's a service-based business, you'll want to use target CPA with maximized conversions. Or if you're an e-commerce company or running an e-commerce campaign, you'll want to use maximized conversion value with a specific target return on ad spend. Ultimately, it's all about better aligning your business goals so that the system can improve efficiency. There are times that we'll want to use target impression share. In my experience, when you're advertising your own brand name, which I do recommend that you do, and that's a conversation for another day, that's one scenario where you want to stay away from maximize conversions or maximize conversion value, because when you choose maximize conversions or conversion value, the system will try to spend the full budget and get as many conversions or as much revenue as it can. But the system doesn't know that there's a finite number of searches available on your brand name, and will just constantly try to spend beyond and find new keywords and new matches to try to spend more. So typically with brand campaigns, we recommend using target impression share, because once you're capturing 90% of search impression share, there really isn't much more to go after. And ultimately, the goal is just to ensure that the user doesn't end up on your competitor's website. And so once you launch the campaign and you're starting to monitor initial performance, best practice is not to make too many changes that are too dramatic that'll throw the system off, because smart bidding needs two things: time and data. So what happens is if you change the bids too often, the system will take some time to adjust and you can hurt your overall performance and kind of slow things down. Typically, we recommend to only make incremental changes to your target KPIs after launching a new campaign. And for me, incremental means something 5, 10%. Anything more than that will kind of shock the system and throw it off. So that's something that I find really important to keep in mind as a new campaign is ramping up. At the same time, for shopping campaigns, it's probably a good idea to like keep on work on optimizing your data feed, the underlying data that's going to power your campaign. For search campaigns, you want to monitor the search terms, negate whatever you can, wherever relevant, because while you don't want to make too many changes to the target KPIs and throw off the bidding, by being proactive and removing keywords that might not be performing well, or based on the product or service you're selling, they might be more relevant, you can guide the machine to drive more of the relevant traffic. So by blocking things that don't make as much sense for you, it'll push the system in the right direction. And so I'd like to take a minute to just kind of talk about the differences between lead gen campaigns and e-commerce campaigns, and how they affect smart bidding. So ultimately, if the input is flawed, the output will be flawed. And this is most important to look at within lead generation campaigns, because with smart bidding that does not have a revenue value tied to it, if you're tracking, for example, the number of phone calls you got for a dental practice, the system knows that it generated a certain amount of phone calls from these keywords, but it might not know that half of those phone calls were somebody looking for the local pizza place and just dialing the wrong number. So that is something that is super important to keep in mind with lead gen campaigns, because somebody might have taken the action and Google saw it, but you don't know, the system doesn't know if that was a good conversion or not. So without that proper feedback loop, broad match keywords and smart bidding can send completely irrelevant traffic and think that it's doing a great job. So you want to make sure that you're on top of that. And here's an example that we've seen in real life. Is we have a campaign that we're trying to find traffic for people searching for commercial trucking insurance. And as a broad match test, what we've seen is that the system started to trigger ads for completely irrelevant terms that might sound related at first glance. If somebody's searching for commercial insurance, that could be for buildings, for businesses, and calls you by clicking on your ad, again, the system will see that it converted and start sending more of that traffic, but it's not relevant to commercial trucking insurance, the actual service that we were trying to promote. So unless you're importing offline conversions and sales data from your CRM, the algorithm doesn't know the difference between a good and a bad lead. With e-commerce, it's different. And why? The primary difference is that unlike lead gen campaigns where you're waiting for the offline sales to take place, the sales team has to follow up and all that, the sale comes in right away online, the pixel is fired, Google sees in real time how much revenue was actually generated from that campaign. So this allows the system to see which keywords or targeting options are actually driving real revenue. And broad match in that scenario, it will know that, hey, this keyword is driving traffic but not driving sales, let's cut it out. Whereas again, for lead generation campaigns, what you might see is that it's tracking conversions. While you can't sell to those people because it's not your customer, the system just sees it as a conversion. And we'll jump more into offline conversion tracking toward the end of this presentation. I'm sure you've all heard about Performance Max, the new campaign type that's taken over the world, very high priority from Google. And we've been testing this for quite some time now. We've been seeing great results, and it's really important to understand how they work, how they're different from regular campaigns, and how you can take an advantage of it to get the best performance possible. Something to keep in mind, though, with Performance Max campaigns is they will supersede any other search, shopping, display campaign in your account. So if you're running search campaigns in the same account, if you're running shopping campaigns with the same products underneath, it will pull traffic away from them. So that's definitely something to watch closely and keep in mind. The only exception to this would be exact match keywords in search campaigns. In that case, it doesn't supersede it or take precedence. So setting up a Performance Max campaign is definitely very different if you set up campaigns in Google Ads in the past. And there are similarities to other campaign types and features because Performance Max really is something that brings together dynamic search ads, responsive search ads, smart shopping, discovery, kind of all into one. It takes the best of each piece. And so what you'll want to do is, first of all, just keep in mind what the similarities are. So in Performance Max, you've got an asset group. This kind of lines up with what an ad group is. You've got audience signals, which work a little different than just standard audience targeting in a regular campaign. It's more of a signal for the algorithm versus actual targeting. And you've got your ad copy and your creative on the asset group level. And then you've got listing groups, which are similar to product groups in standard or smart shopping. And so you'll want to build it in a similar way to a search or shopping campaign where you create an ad group around a specific product or service or something you're looking to promote. And that's kind of like how you'll want to structure it. But similar to responsive search or responsive display ads, you're going to have multiple inputs for headlines, descriptions, images, videos, and you will want to fill these out as best as possible. And remember that the system will, like responsive display or responsive search ads, run through and come up with whatever it thinks is best for each specific user in real time. One thing that's important to note is that Performance Max will create a dynamically generated video for you if you don't provide one. And in what we've seen, it won't be pretty. So we highly recommend uploading your own video. With Performance Max for lead gen, it's really important to set up offline conversion tracking. That's something that I'll dive into a bit later. But similar to what we've discussed with broad match and smart bidding, Performance Max won't know the quality of the leads that it's generating. So it could start generating leads. They might be leads that you can't service. And so you'll want to make sure that you set up offline conversion tracking to provide the value so the system knows what's a good lead and what's not. But also to provide guidance to the system by giving it audience signals. You can upload your customer lists, build audiences around keywords so that Google has a direction in kind of who it should target. Again, with the e-commerce component of Performance Max, smart shopping is being rolled into it later this year. Google will depreciate smart shopping completely, and all smart shopping campaigns will be converted into Performance Max. The thing to keep in mind is that while smart shopping is very similar to Performance Max, it's not the same. Performance Max adds additional placements, but it also adds like a prospecting component to it. Smart shopping was mostly the shopping placements in the search engine result pages with some retargeting layered on top of it. Performance Max will also go and try to find new customers. So for e-commerce Performance Max, Google will take your product data feed from Merchant Center and mix and match it with the creative assets that you provided in the asset group and push out ads across its full display and search network, including YouTube, Discover, Gmail, the whole 9 yards. And we've seen Performance Max really shine with e-commerce because it has the ability to see revenue in real time. Again, like smart shopping, you don't see the underlying search terms. You don't have a lot of visibility into specifics of performance, but the system is able to self-regulate with e-commerce because it knows what's driving real revenue, real dollars for your business. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. For the e-commerce side, you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of all the data fields available in Merchant Center. Fill out everything: color, gender, size, product type, and so on. Make sure your titles and descriptions are keyword rich. Make sure that you've got everything in the data feed. Surprisingly, people don't focus on this, and it really is probably the most important thing in any shopping campaign, but especially in Performance Max, where you cannot see the underlying data and make tweaks and adjustments to negative keywords. This is how Google knows what to show your ads for and who to show it to. At Google Marketing Live, Google announced the rollout of a video creator in the asset library. Again, we do recommend that if you don't have promotional videos of your own for products and service, I highly recommend taking the time to create your own, either using their builder or any third-party tool, because the system will create its own video and they don't look great. So this is definitely a highly recommended option. And so while Performance Max is exciting and we are seeing great results, the campaigns are mostly automated. At the same time, there are several levers that are available to you to push and pull the performance in the right direction, and it's important to really dial these in as best as possible. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's important to have a budget that's large enough for the system to spend and drive traffic. Typically, Google recommends a budget of 5 times your CPA target, and we've seen this to be a pretty good metric. It allows the system the ability to drive enough traffic to really measure what's going to convert and what's not. At the same time, even with a large enough budget, you can launch a Performance Max campaign and not see enough traffic flowing through it. You're not spending the full budget. In that case, what you'll want to do is increase your bids. Again, if you're on target ROAS, increasing your bids means lowering your return on ad spend target. If you're using target CPA, it means raising your target CPA. At the same time, you might be getting traffic, but the performance is not what you've seen. In that case, you can kind of do the opposite, decrease your bids. If you find different scenarios, traffic is coming through, but it's just not converting, ultimately the system will go after finding the right conversions, but you can help the system by adding additional audience signals, by importing more data for the system to work off of. And for e-commerce campaigns, the most important thing is probably to look through the product data. Which products are spending money? What brands are spending money in your data feed? Categories, custom labels, segment the product in different ways, similar to how you would on a regular shopping campaign, and exclude products that are spending a lot of money but not converting, or try to figure out why that product's not converting. Make changes on your product offer itself. So one of the things that we don't like, and I've heard a lot of complaints about with Performance Max, is there's very limited reporting abilities. And there definitely are some workarounds, and I'm going to try to give you a couple of insights in how to try to understand what type of traffic you're getting, where it's coming from, and utilize that data to help you push the campaign in the right direction. So in this screenshot you see here, this is from the campaigns tab of all campaigns. You can use standard segmenting options there to look at anything that you normally would break down. So you can segment conversions by device, time of day, day of week, and so on, to see what devices are driving traffic, what days bring the most sales, and so on. With Performance Max, when you dive into a specific campaign, you can't see this data, but if you move up in your Google Ads manager, just move up to the all campaigns level, you can see this data for all campaigns, including Performance Max, and you can filter to only show the data you want to see for specific campaigns. What's interesting is that when you drill in to the listing groups, and this is for e-commerce, is that you can see the performance, and you'll see that it differs, the cost, the performance, based on the product listing groups versus the overall campaign. And the difference there is, so what Performance Max again does is it takes all the assets that you put in the asset group, the headlines, descriptions, images, videos, it creates ads from that, and then it will also create ads from your product data feed. And so by looking at the listing group and looking at how much you've spent versus how much you spent on the overall campaign, you can get a good understanding of how much of your budget is going towards ads that are utilizing data from your data feed versus how much are using more generic ads from your ad set. And so this is definitely super interesting to look at. Another cool thing to look at is by going to the landing pages tab. This is again not available on the Performance Max campaign itself, but if you look at the overall campaign level, you can filter specifically to certain campaigns, and you can get a better understanding of where the traffic is coming from. So what I like to look for on this page is how much of the traffic is going to individual product URLs, which is from the data feed, how much of the traffic is going to the URL provided in the asset group, maybe a category page, a brand page, so on. And then if you have URL expansion turned on the campaign level, how much of the traffic is going to other URLs on the website that are not listed anywhere in the campaign. These are some good ways to really understand where Google is driving the traffic, what's converting, and you can make changes based on that. So if you see traffic going, let's say, to your homepage, and you know you're not providing that anywhere, but the system is picking it up because of URL expansion, and that traffic's not converting, you can go and shut that off. And lastly, I'd like to cover how we can use first-party data that you have on your customers and who they are. Google is hungry, always hungry for data. And it's important, again, to always feed the system as much as possible. And so there's a couple of areas that we can import data into Google Ads. Firstly is offline conversions. Google has the ability to import data of sales that converted offline. So for a service-based business, for example, you're getting phone calls, you're getting leads, you're getting chats, people are calling in. How do you know which of those or how many of those turned into revenue and real revenue? So Google gives you the ability to import this data so that the system can make best choices and measure what campaigns, what keywords are driving real revenue for your business. Some of the ways that Google offers to import data is through a direct Salesforce integration. And so you just connect your Salesforce account, map the data, choose which actions are important to your business, and it will start bringing in closed deals, closed leads. If you're not on Salesforce and you're using another CRM, you can import data using a tool like Zapier, which has an integration with Google as a layer in between, and it will synchronize your data from any other CRM. It's a little bit technical, but it's definitely worth the effort. And lastly, if it's easier for you, you can always import CSV files manually on a rolling basis. Some data is better than no data. If you don't have a direct integration, I highly recommend that you set aside the time to do that. And so outside of conversion data, there are other ways to import data into Google. Customer Match is a great example of that. Customer Match is Google's tool to import your customer lists so that the system, the algorithm, can understand who your ideal customer is and what's important to your business. The system will go find people in that list, match it to someone who's using any of Google's services, whether it's Google, YouTube, Gmail, Android, so on. It will give you the ability to target those users as well as their lookalikes. And so you'll take an Excel file, download from Shopify, Klaviyo, whatever your system is, and import that into Google. So takeaways from today's talk is that ultimately smart bidding and automation can make your job way easier and drive better results. You don't need to spend as much time in the campaign as you did years ago, but you should take the time to configure the right data inputs, customer lists, data feeds, offline conversions. Let the algorithm do the work and be patient. Like I said, eyes on, hands off, guide the machines. And in closing, what I find is the technology is always advancing. Everything's moving forward. Take advantage of it. Take the first mover advantage while other people might not jump on as fast, and make it work for you. Thank you again. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you learned something exciting here.
Please take a moment to rate this session, then click the green Overtime button in the Dig Deeper tab to join us for live Q&A. See you there.